So, 2015 was a great year. Kendrick Lamar dropped one of the best albums of the decade, Daredevil premiered on Netflix, and people were arguing over the color of a dress, which it was blue and black, damn it. Man, time has been moving. Another massive thing happened, and that was the release of The Witcher 3. Unfortunately, I was in a toxic relationship with Destiny at the time, so this game fell below my radar. Now that I'm older and hopefully wiser, I decided to finally play The Witcher 3 and see what all the hype was about. I'm Mateo Vert, your favorite backlog gamer, and today we're discussing the critically acclaimed Witcher 3. Going into Witcher 3, I honestly wasn't even sure what to expect. Everyone kept telling me this was one of the best games ever made, so naturally the bar was set pretty high. Did it live up to the hype? Surprisingly, yes. Mostly. Geralt turned out to be an incredibly engaging protagonist. He's complex, funny, and someone I found myself rooting for almost immediately. Side characters also caught me off guard. I genuinely enjoyed Lambert's sarcasm and Dandelion's chaotic charm.
Oh, I know, but my gut can't be reasoned with, and no amount of sympathy I feel can silence it. Blot it out.
I'm taking the tiller, though.
Because?
Because it's my boat.
Even with all the backlash around the Witcher 4 trailer, everything involving Ciri in this game really hit. Her sections were exciting and I found myself fully invested in her character. Speaking of story, I played on the Death March difficulty, and while it was kinda challenging at first, within a few hours I honestly forgot I was even on the hardest setting. But more on that later. Now let's talk gameplay. Combat in The Witcher 3. Some people told me it's the weakest part of the game, and I could see why they would say that, but I do not fully agree. It's a very deliberate system. You're not just spamming one button to win like in a lot of action RPGs, especially not on Death March. You actually have to think, dodge, parry, and time your attacks. Bring the right oils and bombs for the situation. This added a layer of immersion to my experience. That being said, I'll admit, hits can feel floaty and sometimes lack that punchy impact modern combat systems are known for. But here's the thing. Swordplay isn't your only option. You've got signs, essentially magic spells that add a lot of utility and flair to how you approach fights. You got Ard, which is like a Jedi force push, Axii, which is your Jedi mind trick. Hold on, I think I just got a build idea, but never mind, we'll come back to that. Igni lets you embrace your inner pyromaniac. Yarden traps enemies and slows them, and Quinn throws a protective force field around you. So I spoke with others who, like me, are playing Witcher 3 for the first time. They say signs feel weak and ineffective, and I just gotta disagree. Quinn alone can trivialize a lot of the combat situations if used right. And while signs may feel a bit underwhelming at the beginning, once you start putting your build together, that changes real fast. Griffin said. Now, what really surprised me was the build diversity. There are way more viable options than I expected, from full-on sword builds to heavy sign users to hybrid alchemy paths. And my favorite aspect, you're not just some guy with a sword. You're a witcher, goddammit. You actually research creatures, prep potions and oils, and figure out the best way to take down your prey. I kind of felt like Sam and Dean from Supernatural, if anyone remembers that show, something I thought I would never say about a video game. Now, what's good gameplay without a good story to back it up? Now, the story of The Witcher 3 has left me with very mixed feelings. You begin your journey searching for Yennefer, Geralt's long-lost lover who leaves a cryptic message that kicks off everything. The opening also doubles as a great tutorial, introducing you to basic combat, monster hunting mechanics, and setting the tone of the world. Once we locate Yennefer, we're whisked off to meet the Emperor. And I'll pause here so you guys can make your Space Marine 2 jokes. Okay, we're done? Cool. Who has contracted her to find his daughter Ciri. Ciri, as it turns out, was once under Geralt's care and was even being trained as a witcher, and so begins our main adventure. Here's the great thing about The Witcher 3. You can tackle quests in any order. You could do whatever side quests you want or hunt down any witcher gear, with some side missions having certain consequences down the line. Your choices aren't just flavor, they ripple forward, shaping the world and the people in it. So I started in Unraveling with the Bloody Baron questline, which introduced me to one of the most irredeemable side characters I've seen in a game. The Baron is an abusive husband and an overall terrible guy, but the writing doesn't let him be one-dimensional. He has information about Ciri, and in exchange, you help him search for his missing wife and daughter, who it turns out left him willingly. His daughter leaves to start over, while his wife, well, we'll circle back to that. We also learned that the Baron had helped Ciri after a run-in with the Wild Hunt, the game's main antagonistic force. Ciri's segments were a welcome change of pace. Her sections break up the game very nicely, and her spunky attitude mixed with the compassion made her incredibly easy to root for. After finishing things with the Baron, I followed a different lead that brought me to Keira Metz, a sorceress and acquaintance of Geralt. Her questline had us diving into the ruins of an elven mage's hideout, where we suspected Ciri may have passed through. This was the first time I fought members of the Wild Hunt directly, and at this point in the game, they felt absolutely formidable. Keira's questline eventually led to a decision that could influence later events. She gained access to dangerous research that in the wrong hands could cause irreparable damage. She wanted to use as a bargaining chip for her protection from the Emperor. I convinced her that the Emperor wouldn't let her slide and that she'd be better off seeking refuge at Kaer Morhen. This led directly into the Ladies of the Wood questline, where we encounter a woman taking care of some orphans. It didn't take me long to figure out that she was offering these kids to crones, ancient grotesque forest spirits. Ciri already had a terrifying encounter with them, which she narrowly escaped. And that woman, turns out she was the Baron's wife. Yeah, things come full circle. Because of my interference, the crones cursed the Baron's wife, transforming her into a grotesque creature who had to be put down. Overcome with grief from losing his wife and his daughter wanted nothing to do with him, the Baron ultimately took his own life. I won't lie, I didn't like the guy, so I didn't feel bad at all. With that, I wrapped up my business in Valen and set my sights on Novigrad. In Novigrad, the mission is simple. Find an old acquaintance named Dandelion. This quest chain I found to be the most uninteresting in the game. We eventually track down Dandelion, who's locked up in a prison. While he's being transported, we spring him free, Michael Scofield style, and from there we learn more about his involvement with Ciri. They were trying to break an enchantment on an item Ciri was carrying. This also led to a heist Dandelion was collaborating with Ciri on. When the heist went off the rails, Ciri loses control of her powers and teleports away, leaving Dandelion to be captured. Like I said, this part wasn't all that interesting in my personal opinion, even the whole Geralt performing with the troop. I remember that I kept wishing the story would just move it along. With Dandelion safe and new information gathered, it was time to move on to one final lead. Skellige is my favorite open world out of all of them. After all the dense politics and city life in Novigrad, arriving in Skellige felt like a breath of fresh air. Literally. Snowy cliffs, crashing waves, Viking-inspired clans, it was a dramatic shift in tone and atmosphere, and I loved it for that. Once we're in Skellige, we reunite with Yennefer. After some magical hocus pocus, we managed to pick up Ciri's trail again. Things escalate quickly when Yennefer performs necromancy on sacred grounds, which really ticks off the locals. Through this ritual, we interrogate the corpse of a man named Skjal, who turns out to have helped Ciri escape the Wild Hunt. Unfortunately, the villagers misunderstood his actions and believed he had abandoned his family, leading to his exile. He died during a trial to earn his honor back, and honestly, Skjal deserved way better. From Skjal, we learned that Ciri and an elven mage had been hiding on Skellige and eventually escaped by a boat. We also get a cryptic vision of a grotesque monster named Uma. That moment kicks off a major turning point. We retrieve Uma and head to Kaer Morhen, and that without a doubt launches my favorite part of the game. Now, the Battle of Kaer Morhen is the peak of the Witcher 3 story for me. We reunite with Lambert and Eskel, fellow witches with personalities that contrast nicely with Geralt's. Lambert, my favorite side character, speaks fluent sarcasm, which happens to be my native tongue. The scene where they get drunk and play Never Have I Ever had me genuinely laughing.
Someone starts by saying, "I've never," and finishing the sentence however they want. Who's ever done that thing downs a shot.
Okay, we got distracted, back on track. Yennefer manages to undo the spell on Uma. At first I thought Uma was Ciri in disguise, and I was wrong, as usual. Turns out it's Avallac'h, the elven mage who's been helping Ciri all along. He knows where she is, but bringing her back to Kaer Morhen will tip off the Wild Hunt and trigger a full-scale invasion. Now, me and Geralt have one thing in common. We will never shy away from a fight. We go to retrieve Ciri, only to find her not breathing. Thankfully, Avallac'h has done some prep work that brings her back to life. Somehow. Honestly, I forgot exactly what happened here, so feel free to correct me in the comments. Then comes the siege. Allies we've gathered throughout the journey return, and it's full-on warfare. We barely make it through, but not without cost. Vesemir, the oldest Witcher, is killed in the battle. Ciri's grief unleashes her powers in a way that scares off the Wild Hunt entirely. After mourning Vesemir, we rally. It's time to take the fight to the Wild Hunt. We start by avenging Vesemir's death, then helping Ciri with some much needed closure so we can focus on the final showdown. We face the Wild Hunt one last time for all the marbles. Defeating their leader triggers a few important decisions. I chose to let Ciri make her own choice. This led to her being removed from our world, presumably dead, while Geralt is left in mourning. Then the credits rolled. I was stunned, until a friend told me I may have gotten the bad ending. Whoopsie. So how did I feel about the story overall? Like I said, mixed. Skellige and the battle at Kaer Morhen were my favorite moments of the game. I enjoyed the Ciri flashbacks and how they developed her character. On the flip side, the hunt for Dandelion dragged a little bit for me, and I just powered through it. And now, the moment you all been waiting for. Who did I romance? It's Triss. Yes, she was my romance choice. If you were around for the streams, you already know I think Yennefer is super toxic. Triss was a good blend of kind, sweet, and just a boss. One of my biggest gripes though is that we spend so little time with members of the Wild Hunt and we're supposed to care about them. I couldn't even tell you their names without looking at my gameplay. They were that forgettable. Maybe if I played the previous Witcher games or maybe even read the books, they would have landed a little harder. Still, I had a blast across my 90+ hours with The Witcher 3. Let's bring this home and talk about how I feel it measures up in 2025. So does The Witcher 3 hold up in 2025?
You serious?
Yes, no question. Once you figure out the game's nuances, you feel like a powerful monster slayer. Geralt is an engaging protagonist who I was always rooting for. His drive to do anything to save Ciri, who he views as his own daughter, is genuinely endearing. Not every narrative beat landed for me, but when it hit hard. I've been told the DLC contains the definitive ending, so I'm looking forward to diving into that. Witcher 3 has remained a mainstay in conversation about the greatest games of all time, and while I absolutely see why, it's not quite in the conversation for me personally. Games like Kingdom Hearts 2, BioShock 1, and the recently released Expedition 33 left a bigger impression on me once the credits rolled. That being said, I already want to play Witcher 3 again with a different build and to make different decisions. If I had to give this game a score, solid 8 out of 10. So, my Witcher 3 journey isn't over just yet. I'm over on Twitch working on trophy cleanup as this video goes live. So stop by and say hi. This video has been my biggest challenge yet, so any constructive feedback would be greatly appreciated. What are your thoughts on The Witcher 3? Did you play it at launch, or are you just like me and diving into it for the first time now? Once I get the platinum, I'll be jumping into the DLC next. So I'll stop yapping for now. If you made it this far, maybe leave a like and subscribe if you're feeling generous, and until next time my fellow Witchers, stay safe out there.